Eventually, Malcolm would return to the United States and began creating new organizations that he felt could bridge the gaps where his previous organizations were not reaching or as unifying as they could have been. When Malcolm left the Nation of Islam, he immediately formed an organization referred to as the Muslim Mosque Incorporated. Shortly after returning from his travels abroad, from Africa, from the Middle East, and from Europe, Malcolm created another organization called the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Afro-American. Malcolm wanted Black America to wake up and realize their potential in unity in their effort to eliminate racism from America. He began speaking out against a racist power structure that was not only in the United States, but found themselves in satellite institutions around the world. Malcolm's tone began to change as it appeared he was less likely to refer to white people as devils, but saw them as potential allies in his effort to approach results by any means necessary. While delivering a speech at the Audubon Ballroom on February 21st, 1965, Malcolm will be assassinated. It is believed, and it has been reported for quite some time, that members in the Nation of Islam, as a form of retribution or revenge, ended Malcolm's life. 3 individuals will be convicted. 2 of them were had their charges reversed, have been released from prison, and it still lends itself to question and consider who ultimately killed Malcolm X and why. Now, we can ponder those questions, but at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, so what exactly was Malcolm's legacy? We can look at Dr. King and we can find his legacy rooted in his nonviolent approach. Well, what exactly was Malcolm's approach? What exactly was his legacy? And Malcolm's legacy represents what I believe to be the epitome of the American dream, that Malcolm is the American dream, that you can find yourself in circumstances that are less fortunate and somehow, some way, create a path or find an avenue that will allow you to be righteously or sincerely yourself. That there's room for change, and that, if you recall, when we started this part of the lecture, I wanted us to talk and learn about Malcolm in phases, and that we all change, we all grow, and we all hope that in that change and growth, we're growing or changing in a direction that's positive for us to be uniquely and genuinely ourselves. Malcolm was a voice that many Black people at that time wish they had the courage to express. Malcolm was the embodiment of that courage. Unfortunately, much like many other individuals of color who stood up and spoke up for themselves and others, his life would be taken prematurely. Malcolm had a eulogy delivered by Ossie Davis, a famous actor, African-American actor at the time, and he wanted people to know that Malcolm was not a man of violence. You have no evidence of finding him in any violent altercation. That the notion that he was violent was simply a gaslighting or passive-aggressive way to dismantle his true desire or dismantle his true character. That defending yourself will be perceived as being violent. But remember, I have no desire to defend myself unless I feel that I'm being threatened. And there's too much evidence of the African American community being threatened. And because of that, Malcolm's life came to an end. At the end of the eulogy, Mr. Davis refers to assigning these mortal remains back to Mother Earth, and that Malcolm's death would plant seeds. And in the eulogy, he makes reference to seeds of discontent that would grow. And in that growth, a new attitude would be born. That the death of Malcolm would give rise to a new emerging evolution to this black struggle in America. And that leads us to the rise of Black Power. Let's go ahead and underline Black Power. And it's not a philosophy of sorts, as it is just a representation or symbol or belief that it's only through the use of Black Power are you going to be able to achieve or accomplish the goals that whites around the world have accomplished and achieved through the exertion of their power. That they may not call it white power, but the way in which they execute, design, create, and establish institutions support and maintain that position of power. Former SNCC leader Stokely Carmichael will use the phrase Black Power as early as 1966, and Stokely Carmichael was working alongside Dr. King for quite some time. And even in his early years, Stokely Carmichael began to become disenchanted with the dreams of Dr. King or the method of Dr. King as to whether or not if they were producing sincere results for the people of the United States. It says here that Black Power was an explosion of racial self-assertion. That Black Power was signified with slogans such as "Black is beautiful," and that Afro-American and African ways of dress and hairstyles would become an extension of who you are and what you know and what you understand to be true. You can look at these two pictures right here. Stokely Carmichael on the left as a member of SNCC being arrested for nonviolent action. And then Stokely Carmichael on the right as he's embracing a Black Power slogan, creating an avenue for a Black Power movement. And that will create the groundworks. And if you've ever heard Stokely Carmichael give a speech, if you've ever heard Stokely or read any Stokely Carmichael's speeches, they are almost verbatim in line, similar to the speeches or the works of Malcolm X while he was with the nation, Malcolm X when he was outside of the nation. It would almost appear that many of the children in the civil rights movement, the children of the civil rights movement will pick up the torch that Malcolm was carrying, as opposed to the torch that Dr. King was carrying. And this leads, this philosophy, or this, not a philosophy, but this attitude of Black Power will lead to the creation of organizations such as the Black Panther Party. And definitely, let's go ahead and underline the Black Panther Party. This is an organization that was founded in Oakland, California, in 1966. Again, a year after Malcolm's assassination, 2 years before Dr. King's assassination. The radicalization of SNCC as an organization as well. This Black Panther Party was founded by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale, and they were notorious for advocating self-defense in response to police brutality. What they would do is, and because they were experiencing this all across the United States, where it was the word of a black man to that of a police officer, a public official. And of course, in many instances, because there are no recordings, audio or video, the word of the officer was paramount. And you would never question the police officer. You had no evidence to question the police officer because that would be destroyed, or you would be harmed in covert or subversive ways. You'd be taken to places where they couldn't hear you scream, and drugs could be planted, things could be planted, weapons, and so forth. And so what they decided to do is they said, well, if this is how we're going to be treated, we know that this is the situation. We understand that the police are corrupt, but we can't go to the police to complain about corrupt police. Then we must police the police. How do we do that? Well, they decided to follow police cars, and if ever they pulled anyone over, the Black Panther Party would step out of their vehicles carrying weapons as their Second Amendment right, because apparently that's the thing that everyone loves, the Second Amendment. And all of a sudden now that black people are carrying weapons and they are watching the police, policing the police to ensure that they are abiding by the letter of the law. Of course, the police are going to see this as a threat, as obstruction to their ability to do their line of work. And so therefore conflicts will ensue. There were tussles, there were fights, there were shootouts between the Black Panther Party and local police departments, whether they were in California, whether they were in Detroit, whether they were in Chicago, infamously with the assassination of Fred Hampton in the south side of Chicago, a young Black Panther Party leader. Many of the early founders of the Black Panther Party will be incarcerated, be shot, be killed, and ultimately led down paths of destruction that we now have evidence that the FBI instigated, initiated, planted. One of the biggest takeaways from reading the FBI memos on the Black Panther Party is that they considered the Black Panther Party's free breakfast program as the most dangerous element of the Black Panther Party. Not the fact that they were disseminating information about socialism, not the fact that they were anti-capitalist because they believed that capitalism was an instrument by which to subdue and exploit working class peoples who happen to also be people of color. The Black Panther Party was not seen dangerous because they were executing their Second Amendment right to carry weapons to protect and defend themselves. The most dangerous element of the Black Panther Party was the fact that they went in their communities, and not only did they set up health clinics, they set up schools, after school programs. The most dangerous element was the fact that they created a breakfast program, because when you feed children, when you provide for children, those individuals would eventually grow up and be fond of the individual that was looking out for them, an individual that was supporting them, an individual that was proud of them and uplifting them. And the FBI knew immediately that the breakfast program could be seen as a recruitment element to the future Black Panther Party leaders. And of course, the FBI and the CIA are well aware of this recruitment tactic and program, because the FBI is thoroughly engaged in similar activities. You know, it's like, we want to stop these guys because they're lying. Well, how do you know that they're lying? Because the person that is claiming or alleging an individual is lying is because they are the best liars in the world, probably. It says here, internal disputes, the FBI and CIA. Now, let us understand that the CIA is an international agency. So what is the Black Panther Party? How threatening are they internationally? Well, because they believed in what Malcolm was ultimately aiming up for, and that was a worldwide approach to disarm or dismantle any system of exploitation. And it wasn't just in America, but around the world. There was an international notion or conspiracy that there were institutions that were exploitive and keeping people at bay. And as the Black Panther Party became international, to a degree it did, because you had many members that were exiled and they chose to live in other countries and operate as figureheads to a degree in a safer condition in countries outside of the United States. So the CIA had to monitor these individuals as well. But with all that being said, many of the leaders will end up dead in shootouts. They're going to destroy the organization. The fact that they were unabashedly willing to protect themselves and defend themselves. I think that's also gets lost because the original name for the Black Panther Party is called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. That's the name of the whole party. But of course, it gets shortened to just the Black Panther Party. And it's perceived that they are simply a party of violence. And this is where the tide of the civil rights movement has definitely changed. We now have extreme, violent, I don't even want to call them, but we just have extreme organizations that are no longer adhering to a non-violent approach. And because of that, they will be seen as violent. They will be deemed as violent. And this will scare not only authority figures within America, but through the media, they will be considered threatening, and they're going to scare much of America into thinking that maybe we're going too far. Maybe this freedom movement is going to end up deadlier than we're expecting. And so what I want you to take away from the Black Panther Party is that they are a new wave to this civil rights movement, and it's a younger, more educated, more outspoken, and ready for anything and everything anywhere type of activity or action. So the Black Panther Party these are the sons and daughters of Malcolm, and they've had a lasting legacy within the United States. We can see from this slide here various pictures, buttons, and promotional images to show the organization, the structure, the education, and the leadership of the Black Panther Party. Many of the leaders were actually women. Many of the educators were women. That gender would not relegate you useless, as it may have been in other sectors or sections of American history or world history, that they believed in brothers and sisters in arms, fighting to achieve what they believed to be their right as human beings on this earth, as Malcolm would say, by any means necessary.